Have you ever said something in anger and known the exact second the words left your mouth that you just made a mistake you cannot undo? Not a big dramatic explosion, just a quiet, sharp moment. Maybe it was to your boss in a meeting when he said the wrong thing at the wrong time. Maybe it was to your wife after a long day when she asked one question too many. Maybe it was a text you sent at midnight that you should have just left in your drafts. And the moment it happened, something inside you went cold. Because you already knew. You did not need anyone to tell you. A door had just closed. A trust that took years to build had just cracked in 5 seconds flat. And you told yourself they would get over it. You told yourself it was their fault for pushing you that far. You told yourself you were right anyway. But underneath all of that, a quieter voice said something you did not want to hear. You just paid a price you could not afford. If that has ever been you, stay with me, because what I'm about to share might be the most important thing you hear this year. This is the story of a man named Samson. Samson was 38 years old, project manager at a construction firm, wife named Evelyn, 2 kids, mortgage on a house in a decent neighborhood, a job that paid enough. From the outside, his life looked fine. But Samson had a problem that had followed him everywhere since he was a teenager. He had a short fuse. Not the dramatic kind. Samson never threw things or raised his voice in public. His anger was quieter than that. And because of that, it was harder to see and harder to fix. It came out in sharp words during arguments, in a cold silence that could last for days, in decisions made too fast when he felt disrespected, in emails fired off before he had time to think them through. His father had been the same way, his grandfather too. The men in his family did not talk about feelings. They carried them until they exploded and then moved on like nothing happened. It was just how they were wired, or so Samson told himself. At work, he was genuinely talented. He knew construction inside out. He knew how to read a project, manage a team, and solve problems before they became crises. His boss, Mr. Jerry, had been quietly grooming him for a senior director position for over a year. Samson knew the promotion was coming, so did everyone else in the office. And then, one Tuesday afternoon in March, it all changed. A major client named Richard was unhappy about delays on a project. Mr. Jerry called Samson into the meeting to explain. Richard was the kind of man who spoke to people the way some people speak to waiters, dismissive, impatient, like everyone else in the room existed to serve his schedule. He interrupted Samson 3 times in 10 minutes. The 3rd time, Samson felt it, that heat in his chest he had felt 1,000 times before. His jaw tightened, his hands went still on the table. Then Richard said the word incompetent. And Samson looked at him and said quietly but clearly that if Richard understood anything about construction, he would know the delays were caused by his own team's failure to deliver approved drawings on time. The room went silent. Richard's face changed. Mr. Jerry looked at the table. The meeting ended shortly after. Richard shook Mr. Jerry's hand. He did not shake Samson's. That evening, Mr. Jerry called Samson into his office. He did not shout, he did not lecture. He just sat back in his chair and looked at Samson for a long moment. Then he said, "Samson, you were right. Richard's team did cause those delays. Everyone in that room knew it." Samson felt a small relief, but Mr. Jerry kept talking. "Richard is worth $4 million in contracts to this firm over the next 3 years. He has asked that you be removed from his projects. And because those are the projects I was going to hand you as director, I now have a problem." Samson opened his mouth. Mr. Jerry raised a hand. "I am not saying you were wrong. I am saying that being right in the wrong moment, in the wrong way, just cost you more than being wrong would have." Samson drove home in silence. He told Evelyn what happened. She listened without interrupting. Then she was quiet for a moment before she said the thing that hit him harder than anything Mr. Jerry had said. "Samson, this is not the first time. Do you remember what happened with your brother at Christmas? And before that with the school principal? And before that with your last boss?"
He wanted to argue, but he could not, because she wasn't attacking him, she was just holding up a mirror. And in that mirror, he saw something he had been avoiding for years. It was never one explosion. It was always a quiet moment where something in him chose being right over being wise, and every single time, without fail, it cost him something he could not get back. That night, after Evelyn and the kids were asleep, Samson sat alone at the kitchen table. He opened his laptop. He wasn't sure what he was looking for. He typed something like, "Why do I keep getting in my own way?" and started reading. 2 hours later, he came across one sentence that stopped him completely. Between stimulus and response, there is a space. In that space is your power to choose, and in that choice lies your growth and your freedom. He read it 3 times. He thought about the meeting, about the heat in his chest, about the split second before the words came out. That space, he had never noticed it before. It had always felt like the anger and the response were the same thing, instant, automatic, inevitable. But they were not the same thing. There was a gap. There had always been a gap. He just never learned to live in it. He thought about his father, about the way arguments at home went from 0 to devastating in seconds, about how his father lost friends and opportunities, and eventually his marriage to the exact same pattern Samson was now repeating. He thought about his grandfather, a man of real talent who died bitter and overlooked, convinced the world had been unfair to him.
Maybe it had been, but Samson was starting to wonder how much of that unfairness his grandfather had quietly created himself. One sharp word at a time, one closed door at a time, one moment of being right when being wise would have changed everything. The next morning, Samson called Mr. Jerry and asked to meet. He did not go in to defend himself. He went in to ask one honest question. He sat across from Mr. Jerry and said, "I have been thinking, not about Richard, about myself. How long has this been a problem?" Mr. Jerry studied him. Then he leaned forward. "Samson, you are one of the most capable people I have ever managed. You see problems before they happen. Your teams respect you. You execute." He paused. "But I have watched you walk out of 4 rooms in 3 years where the door should have stayed open. I did not say anything because the talent made it worth it. But I cannot keep doing that at director level. The stakes are too high." Samson nodded. Then he asked the question that changed the direction of his life. What would it take? Not the promotion, just what would it take for me to actually fix this? Mr. Jerry was quiet for a moment. Then he said, "I think you already know. You just have to want the answer more than you want to be right." Samson left that meeting and started working on himself the way he had never worked on anything before. He found a therapist who worked with men specifically on anger and emotional regulation, not because he thought he was broken, but because he finally understood something. He had been driving a powerful car his whole life with no steering wheel. He learned that his anger was not really about the meetings or the arguments or the difficult clients. It was older than all of that. It had roots going back to a childhood where showing emotion meant showing weakness, and weakness was not safe. He practiced finding the space, 1 second, 2 seconds, just enough to ask one question before responding. What is the cost of this response? He was not perfect. He still felt the heat. There were still moments where the words came too fast, but the catches got earlier, and the gaps got wider, and slowly, quietly, the steering wheel took shape. 6 months later, Mr. Jerry called him back into the office. New contracts had come in, bigger than Richard's. He told Samson he had watched him handle 3 difficult situations in the past 6 months with a steadiness he had not seen before. Then he slid a letter across the desk. Director of Project Operations. Samson picked it up and read it twice. Then Mr. Jerry said the words Samson never forgot. "The talent was always there, Samson. I was just waiting to see if the man caught up to it."
2 years later, Samson sat in the front row of his daughter's school play. Evelyn was beside him. His son James was backstage in a costume that was slightly too big. The auditorium was loud and crowded and chaotic. A man behind him accidentally knocked his chair getting to his seat and did not apologize. 2 years earlier, Samson would have turned around, would have said something, would have carried that small moment of disrespect in his chest for the rest of the evening and let it poison everything around it. Instead, he felt the heat, he found the space, and he let it go. He watched his daughter walk onto the stage. He watched her face light up the moment she found him in the crowd. And sitting there in that front row, he thought about all the moments like this one he had poisoned over the years, not because anything in the room deserved his anger, but because he had never learned to put it down. He thought about his father, his grandfather, the long chain of men before him who had real talent and real ability, but who kept handing the keys of their destiny to the worst 5 seconds of their emotions. And he made a quiet decision. It ends with me.
Not because I am better than them, but because I can see what they could not see. And once you can truly see something, you cannot pretend that you cannot. My friend Samson's story is not unique. It is playing out right now in offices and homes and families all around you. Maybe it is playing out in yours. Here is what most people do not understand about anger. It is not the loud, explosive kind that does the most damage. It is the quiet kind. The sharp word delivered calmly. The cold silence that lasts 3 days. The decision made in 5 seconds that takes 5 years to recover from. And the most dangerous thing about it is this. It always feels justified. Every single time, in the moment, it feels completely and entirely justified. That is exactly how it wins. The difference between the life you have and the life you want is often not talent, not connections, not hard work. It is what happens in the space between what you feel and what you do. That space is tiny, 1 second, sometimes less, but everything lives in that space. Your marriage, your career, your reputation, your children's future, because they are watching you right now and learning from everything they see, whether you know it or not. So here is your challenge, simple, practical, starting today. For the next 7 days, every single time you feel that heat rising in your chest, before you respond, ask yourself one question. What is the cost of this response? Not whether you are right, you might be completely right, but what is the cost? If the cost is worth it, respond. If it is not, choose differently. One question, 7 days. You will be amazed at what you find in that space. If this story hit close to home, drop a comment below and finish this sentence. The moment my emotions cost me the most was blank. You do not have to share the details, just finish the sentence, because naming it is the first step to ending it. And if someone came to mind while you were watching this, someone with real talent who keeps getting in their own way, share this video with them, not to call them out, because you care about where they end up. Sometimes the most powerful thing you can do for someone is put the right mirror in front of them at the right moment. Your future self is standing on the other side of that 1 second gap. The talent is already there. The only question is whether the man is going to catch up to it. Do not make them wait any longer. I'll see you at the top. Before you go, do not forget to like and subscribe to the Kingdom Family Lab for more wisdom if you enjoyed this video.